Yo everyone, today I'm going to teach you how to stop overdriving in F1 2025. I feel like this year's iteration of the Formula 1 game is quite possibly the easiest to overdrive on, maybe since F1 2022. That was an exceptionally difficult game to maximize the car and physics performance model on to get the maximum lap time potential from it. I feel F1 2025 has a bit of a hangover from F1 2024 in the sense that some of the physics model is carrying over, like the wheel flicking and certain aspects of the track curving physics model that you can really exploit to get the lap time potential, even if it feels a bit rough and unnatural to be doing so. I do feel like F1 2025 has taken a step forward from 24 though, and that's something we're going to be discussing in this video on how you can stop having those negative traits from F1 2024 and carrying them over to F1 2025. I think the biggest one of that is of course the wheel flicking. Wheel flicking still has a unique advantage in F1 2025, most notably in the wet conditions. I would still say wheel flicking in the rain is almost as powerful as it was in F1 2024. It still has some limitations where you want to be smooth on the steering wheel input, but I would still say it has a lot of advantage in the rain. But wheel flicking in the dry, I start to feel like there's a higher threshold of performance that you can reach by being smooth on the steering wheel for 90-95% of the time. I would say the wheel flicking now to extract the maximum performance from the physics model is more or less limited to that low speed corners. The reason I say that is the tire temperature, especially on the surface, is so sensitive on this year's iteration of the Formula 1 game that if you do a wheel flick in the medium or high speed corners, the surface temperature is going to rapidly overheat and you're going to end up with a lot less grip in many ways. So the wheel flicking can still be possible in the low speed corners, but I really say is limited to low speed corners. For example, like the final sector here in Silverstone, the final chicane, and also a little bit of sector 1 as well. I would still say wheel flicking is possible on these corners in like qualifying, for example, where you have a lot of grip and you can really throw the tire around. Also in sector 1, as I just previously mentioned, and we're going to show an example of that going through right now. So then we're just going through this corner, arriving to sector 1, and like I say, I still think wheel flicking is going to be possible, not really on this type of corner to be honest, because it's quite smooth and gradual, but this type of corner where you really have to throw the car in, and corners that have that sort of stability issue from middle to exit. For example, the difference in my mind anyway between these two corners is the fact that this first one is quite smooth, very gradual, and the car doesn't really have a problem with staying stable in the middle and exit of the corner. You can see the car is very stable, it's very relaxed, and it's easy to keep the car in a good way. Whereas traditionally on this corner of Silverstone, there's a bit of camber, it's quite tight, and it's really difficult to keep the car completely balanced on this apex, and it's quite often you'll have a traction limitation on the exit of the corner. So by doing the wheel flick into this apex, you get a saturation on the front tire. A saturation is really where you just purposely spike the grip too high on the front axle, and that just means it understeers a little bit, and because it's understeering, it can't oversteer, and that can help protect the rear axle just a little bit to stop you sort of oversliding and overdriving on the rear limitation of the grip on this corner. So yeah, now we've covered that sort of introduction to sort of where I feel the wheel flicking is good, where I feel it's not really an advantage. Now we're sort of going to move on to the second phase of the video, and that's just going to be not scrubbing the tires in situations that you don't need to scrub them in. We'll start this off in time trial, and then we'll move over to GP mode so I can just show how it works with the tires in a racing situation. Also, this will apply to qualifying in general. Of course, qualifying has a less potency from this issue because you have more grip. Generally, the more grip that you have in a car, the more it will cover up your mistakes. It's easier to sort of get away with your mistakes in a higher grip car, generally, because there's more grip to cover up your mistakes. Whereas when you're driving a slower or less gripped car, then it's harder for that grip to cover up your mistakes, because that mistake of an input has a bigger effect because you don't have the extra grip to save you, you know. So that's sort of going to be that, and we're going to now jump into this little phase of the time trial lap, and then we'll jump over into the GP mode after to show it in a live sort of action, a live footage as well. So you can see going through Silverstone at the moment, it's just really focusing on not braking too late into the corners. F1 2025, it's quite easy to lock up a tire going into the apex when you put steering wheel load in. Steering wheel load is when you're turning and steering at the same time. So we're just going through the first sector. Once again, turn off the HUD because it's quite annoying and I just like to see the car without the HUD overlaid to it. So basically it's very easy to lock up the tire when you start steering and braking at the same time going into the apex. So this is the kind of phase of the corner that would be super easy to lock up the front right because it's unloaded and basically the weight is going to the front left tire, compressing that tire, putting friction into it to put it into the tarmac, whereas the front right tire doesn't have the weight transfer. It almost lifts up, you know. When you're turning to the right, the weight of the car goes to the left. When you're turning to the left, the weight transfer goes to the right. So that is why you get a little bit of front locking in these situations. But yeah, it's very easy to lock up that front tire. What would happen if you locked up that front right tire going into the corner? Then you would end up going a little bit too deep, carrying too much speed. You would actually overheat the front right tire because of the lockup and the extra heat and energy going into that flat spot of the tire. Of course, in F1 2025, there isn't physics model for the flat spot, but there is still a temperature model. So when you do lock up a tire, it will overheat. It just won't have the flat spot like you would have in real life, you know. It also does degrade the tire. So when you are flat spotting or locking up a tire, it will cause extra tire wear. The knock-on effect from that is because you're not slowing down as efficiently for the corner, you're overheating the front right tire, and also you're going to end up overloading the front left tire because you're carrying too much speed into the corner because you did not have the braking efficiency, and that's going to lead to a situation that you're over-scrubbing, over-stressing, and overworking the front left tire. The net result of that is by the time you get to the exit of the corner here, you're going to have the front right tire overheating because you locked it up, and the front left tire marginally overheating because you put too much energy to it and you're having to use the friction of the tire scrubbing it over the surface of the road to make up for the mistake of carrying too much speed into the corner because the braking was not efficient. Normally what happens at this point is you start getting understeer from the car, it starts moving around, and then it's very easy to panic and have a snap of oversteer on the exit because the car's understeering, and your brain is like telling you, get back on the power, you know. And then it's easy just to get too much back on the power and translate that understeer to snap oversteer on the exit. We're going to try and show you an example here. Go into the corner too quickly, and then you can see I just want to get back to the power, get back, and I'm just getting snaps of oversteer on the exit, quite simply because I'm just working the car too hard in that situation. If you do go too fast into a corner, we're just going to use the flashback feature here. Lovely job, Leigh. Press the F1. So you're going to see we're going to do that again. If we do go too deep into a corner, just accept it and then wait for the car to be straight and then get back on the power on the exit. Minimize the downsides of your mistake rather than just throwing your foot back on the power or your finger back on the trigger if you're on the controller or keyboard or whatever you're playing on, and just accept the mistake and don't overwork it to try and recover a mistake that you're not really going to recover from. This also applies in high-speed corners. It's quite easy to throw too much speed into the corner and then you're just running wide. Just wait to get back on the power rather than just throwing all your energy at it, you know. So we're just going to do this one more time, then jump over to a racing situation like we said we would. I'm talking so much at the moment, but yeah, hopefully the video is helpful for you as well. So you're just going through the same example, throwing too much speed into the corner, and we're just going to get back on the power too soon, and then we end up bottoming out on the outside curbing, and even the delta was worse. Previously, we exited the corner by waiting at 1.3 seconds down compared to my best lap time around Silverstone. And on this example, it was 1.4 seconds down by the time we had the net result of running over the exit curbing, you know. So just keep that in mind. If you are going to make a mistake and if you register that you're running wide into a corner, you're overworking the tires, just accept it. Don't fight the mistake, you know. Work with it and just try to minimize the downsides of the mistake. You often won't ever get back the lap time from braking too late or braking too early or having oversteer and or understeer going into a corner. You can't fix what's just happened in the car. It's impossible, you know, but you can minimize the downsides of the mistake and try to convert it into something positive. For example, if I went too deep into this corner, then I would think, okay, too deep, let's get the car really straight on the exit and then get a really, really good exit, right? exit speed onto the straight. Going into Brooklands and Luffield here right now. Okay, maybe I carry too little speed in the first apex. I'm too far here on the left-hand side of the track. Great! I can open up Luffield a little bit more. And you can see we're able to flow the car through the apex and through the track just a little bit better. Rather than me thinking, oh no, like again, let's go back into replay mode. Rather than thinking, oh no, I've gone too slow on the first apex, slamming back down on the throttle, trying to get my minimum speed back up. Then I'm going to get a massive kick of wheel spin probably here on the exit as well. And instead of having the car better positioned for the following right-hander, I'm just repeating and living mistakes that I've made in the past. It's better just to put a hard stop to it and go, okay, that mistake has happened. I've carried too much or too little speed into a corner. Just accept it and then work forward and how you maximize the next apex going forward. So now let's jump over to GP mode and into a racing situation and how we can also just be looking at it and affecting the tire temps in a live example. So as you can now see, we're here in an actual race at Silverstone on the medium compound tires. We've given the AI a massive gap so we can just run our own laps here and really show you it. On the bottom right hand side is our temperature panel. As you can see, going through the corner, the front right tire is going to heat up because that's a tire that is under stress. And if we do a massive wheel flick, you can see how much the front left tire is going to heat up. A big slap of oversteer there, just from just how much we're stressing the car out, you know. But you can see in the very basic example, when we turn to the right, the left-hand tires will heat up. When we turn to the left, the right-hand tires will heat up, you know. So as that will play out as we're going through high-speed corners as well, just keep an eye on that. What we're going to do is put the braking bias super far forward, just so I can show you the effect of locking up has on the front tire temperatures. And now we're just going to wait to go through this corner. Then once we get to the straight, we're going to lock up the front tires on purpose. And you're going to see, just a quick note, before this starts, we're on 3 and 2% tire wear. Let's do this. Massive front left lockup. And as you can see, it's slightly heating up the tires as we go down the track, but additionally, it's going to be massively wearing out the tires as well. We started on 3% on the front left tire, and then also on the front right, we're up to 9%. So that just shows how much of an effect locking up the tires will have. Of course, this is such a drastic lockup. Relatively, you would never have it that big, but you can see just locking up even for, let's do it for like 2 seconds, right? So, 1, 2. At least a multiple percentage of tire wear and also heating up the front tires as well due to the friction created by the lockup. So, going into the corner, you can see now the front left tire gained so much temperature going into the apex with the addition and the help of the lockup generating that tire, the tire temperature. So you can see, just through those examples alone, we already have up to 19 and 17% tire deg. And now we're going to do the opposite on the rear axle and just show you how drastically sliding the rear axle can be heating up the rear tires, you know. So this, again, is very extreme, but we're just going to do a bit of drifting. And you're going to see maybe a bit of spinning as well. So you're going to see how quickly those rear tires are heating up. Of course, like I say, this is so drastic and reasonably you wouldn't be drifting or locking up that much in an actual race or qualifying situation, but this is just to show you an example of how much sliding can actually have a negative effect to your tires and really overheat them and increase tire deg as you go through the stint as well. So now you're going to see that we have a car that is really bad actually because of the tire wear. We're going to have so much front tire wear and not a lot of rear tire wear because of just how much locking we've done. But now I'm going to show you how to not overdrive this car even with drastic understeer because of the tire deck. So this should be a good example because the car is not going to be perfect. It's going to be quite unoptimized, to be honest, because of the tire wear. But now I'm going to show you what I do to really make sure that I don't overdrive it and try to extract the maximum lap time potential even from an unideal situation in the car. So remember, a lot of front locking up, a lot of front grip has been taken away. So we brake early, reduce the brake pedal into the corner, very smooth inputs, a bit of a wheel flick here because I think on this specific corner it can be faster. Fight the rear a little bit on the exit, a little bit of overdriving there as we're sliding the rear axle, just trying to feel the grip. But now you're going to see, we're just going to open up the temperature window so you see what's happening live and true as well. But going into the corner, you can see we just have so much understeer, lacking front grip, purple sector 1 against the AI. But you can see once the car is understeering, I can't really do much about it. Once the understeer has been initiated, yeah, you can't really fight understeer once it started, but what you can do, as I mentioned earlier in the video, is just minimize the downsides of it, right? So instead of fighting the car even more, sliding even more, I just let my steering wheel be very smooth, going through the corner, take it quite conservative, get to my apex, you can see very smooth through here, picking up good racing lines, back on the power, and I'm just not letting the downsides of the tire deg or the car imperfections affect my ability to drive smoothly. If I need to brake earlier and carry slightly less speed into the corner to maintain smooth driving inputs, I will. If I need to brake slightly earlier to not have that overdriving, I will, you know? You don't need to be fighting too much in this situation. Just focus on really solid, really good racing lines, and that will allow you to open up the opportunity to maximize your car and yourself potential on F1 2025. So yeah, just drive smooth, even if the car is in an unideal situation. As you can see there, that's a great example. I broke just slightly too late going into this corner, just turning off the HUD. So you compare this to the lap before. I broke slightly too late going into this corner, and because of how much understeer the car has with the front tire deg, you're going to see that we just under-rotated. It's not going to actually lock up the front right tire because it wasn't that drastic, but we slightly under-rotated the front right tire, then put too much stress on the front left tire, and you can see the washout effect I was talking about earlier. As soon as that understeer is initiated, it's so hard to come back from, but as we recovered it, we didn't just slam back on the power, fight the rear axle, we just get back on the power very smoothly and didn't fight the car in a negative way. So we're going to round out this lap just to show you the final examples of this situation. And yeah, always feel free to ask in the comments if you want a different tutorial or me to try and explain something on video. I would love to. I'd love to help out if I can and try to do good videos, you know, do good content as well. So yeah, if you do want any specific video, just let me know. I do have a lot of videos planned already on how to combat oversteer, understeer from a driving style perspective, how to maximize other areas as well, just general tutorials in the game. But yeah, if you have any ones that you would like to see, put them down in the comments and I'll try my best to make it a maximum priority to get it done for you ASAP. Going through the section now, you can just see pushing the front axle a bit more, carrying more speed. As we do so, the front tires heat up a little bit more with the friction that we are generating in this situation. Final sector before we wrap up the video, into the apex now, just throw the car in, very smooth input, back on the power, and maximizing the grip that we have to us, even if the grip is not ideal and is not optimal. Focus on your racing lines, don't deviate from that, because a good racing line will bring you more lap time potential than just throwing the car all around and just being a bit messy, you know what I mean? So with that being said, I've been Brendon Leigh, and hopefully this video has been helpful, informative to you as well, and I'll catch you in the next video. Grazie ragazzi. Let's end this video with a drift, because who doesn't like a drift? Let's end this video with a spin, because who doesn't like a spin? With that being said, I've been Brendon Leigh, and I'll catch you in the next video. Grazie ragazzi. Ciao ciao. Bye bye. Ooh, red flag. Ciao ciao. Bye bye.